Talafero. What can I say about Amy? I'm gonna say a lot of things. She's SoSI 1, which is like this. Amy Xavier came on earlier, and we had some other SoSI 1.0, which was beautiful. Amy, I consider Amy such a friend. We've connected so often, but over this pandemic, it's been like these really memorable, get me through kind of chats. I'm only hopeful that it's similar for Amy. She's a new ski buddy. Started skiing together. She teaches drums to members of my family. So that's maybe one of the most important things that she does. She influences my family in deep ways. She plays in this band called Teague that I've had the chance to write music for, but they write their own music, which is incredible. You guys all probably know Chosen Vale, percussionists know Chosen Vale. Amy was basically the artistic director of Chosen Vale with Doug Perkins as her assistant, is the way I like to think about it. Amy helped make SoSI what it is, because after she was here the first year, she kind of had a early Shelby-like position where she helped things come together. Yeah, first Shelby, first Supreme Allied Commander of SoSI. Amy, what else am I forgetting? Does that wrap up a lot of things? Amy is just an incredibly creative person, wonderful person. She brings people together, which is one of the wonderful things that she does. And also she's in the thick of one beat music right now, which maybe she'll talk a little bit about, which is another amazing thing that Amy does. I'm forgetting some things, but I wanted to throw those out there. Amy, we are so excited that you are talking right now. You're our last talk, which is wonderful. You're in the pole position. Which is great. So let's all unmute and bring some love for one of the best people out there.
Hey,
Amy G.
thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you. It's good to see your faces. Thanks for the great intro. SoSI is so near and dear to my heart, and I think was the beginning of a real trajectory, not only in my musical life, but just in really my life in general, pushing me to ask more questions, to really build relationships that, I mean, since 2009 have just lasted and grown. And it's amazing to think that some of the people who've remained some of my closest collaborators I met at this percussion camp, one of the first of its kind, how it's grown. I'm going to shut my window just for this talk so that that doesn't happen again. I'll be right back. Okay, but one of the big things that Jason mentioned was just our friendship. And I think that was one of the things that really struck me when I was at SoSI, not only with the other folks who were involved in the program, but also with Eric and Adam and Jason and Josh, was just wanting to know them as people, to know their experiences. And we were all sort of brought to this place, to Princeton University, because we all play drums and we all play the marimba and we all make sounds together. But truly that coming together is really just about learning how all of us move through the world. And the things that we gain musically are really important, but really the things that we're just learning about how to be better people and how to care for each other and to care for the people that we haven't even interacted with yet. These kinds of really intensive experiences, even the ones that are happening here virtually, I think are such a rich and special place to be. And so really, I want to thank all of you for taking time out of your lives to see the value of that, not just musically, but again, just as a way to connect with people that you wouldn't normally interact with, because we all have the people that we see in our daily lives, our family, our friends, and then, you know, some strangers that we bump into. But it's kind of rare to really have the time and the space to have the conversations that we get to have in these kind of really intimate spaces, especially as they're connected to music and the arts. I feel like there's an additional kind of vulnerability there. So that sort of leads me into what I'm going to spend most of this time talking about, which is I think SoSI kind of really kicked off something for me as a musician and a percussionist. I think, like maybe some or many of you, I went to school for music and was classically trained as a percussionist, went to undergrad and grad school, and SoSI was sort of right before I was going to grad school. and to see So create in ways that were away from the music page, away from traditional notation, to learn the ways that they were composing, to learn the ways that they were improvising together, to see the ways that they were dreaming big about what percussion music can be, was really eye-opening for me, coming from kind of this more narrowly focused Western music, notation, conservatory way of existing. I think it took me until 2016, truly, when I was a part of this project called One Beat, to really understand the ways in which I could grow even further beyond what SoSI had initially introduced to me. So One Beat, actually, why don't we start? Shelby, can you just play the little One Beat intro video? I'll play this and then I'll just dive in and talk a bit about it. It's the last one on the list.
This one? Just want to make sure.
It is.
Oh, no.
Oh, there was a few more down on the email, so I don't think it's in there.
1 second. Y'all gonna see my email for a minute. Don't worry about it. It gets wild. Oh, yes.
One Beat intro, there it is, yeah.
Thanks for y'all's patience. We got it. And I'll open up those other ones. I think I did not see them. And that's okay. Here we go. Y'all can see this, right? Like this is good.
Yeah.
Okay. If we can just make sure it'll
It's
play.
short, but I think it just, the spirit comes alive.
Oh, we're struggling over here. Sorry, guys. Here we go.
You've seen it all.
Can we hear?
The passing of
Yeah.
times. Birds and seasons, and then you know your ways and what might follow. I'll look at you, remember my sighs. Who is calm and who is wise? You've seen it all.
Okay, so just a little tiny little teaser. One Beat is an organization. It's a program that's run by an organization called Found Sound Nation, and they're based in Brooklyn. And One Beat brings together musicians from all over the world. It's actually funded by the State Department, and incredibly has maintained its funding through the previous presidency, through COVID, through everything, and has it's almost 10 years old. And it's a month-long residency in the US where 20 international musicians and 5 Americans meet together to create. And there are about 3 weeks that we spend in a residency together, and then another 2 weeks where we're touring throughout the US, playing concerts, doing social engagement projects, doing master classes, working with students, working with elderly. Basically, it's the real world, but it's music. And it's a really profound experience to be able to, again, have that time, to know that we're all musicians coming together to make something, but we're living together, we're eating together, we're traveling together. We're trying to understand each other's languages, not only the ones that we speak, but musically as well. Folks are coming from all ends of the globe and all ends of the musical spectrum. Some trained, some untrained, some who are professional musicians, some who are architects, but are also a really incredible musician. And it's a really fruitful space to just have the time and the space to make. For me, my experience with this program is one of the things that I want to talk about and convey to all of you, kind of what I spoke about earlier. I often think of myself solely as a collaborator. And I think when you're a percussionist, often we study a lot of like solo music. And if you're a composer, you're kind of writing music and then handing it off to somebody else. But I don't know that it took me a long time to kind of consider what it is to really be an artist. And I think a lot of that is because of how artists are kind of held on a pedestal here in the States, whether they're playing at Carnegie Hall, a big recital, or we see Yo-Yo Ma, we see these like really big names. And if we hold ourselves to those standards, well, they're just different. They're different people, they're different experiences. And part of what was really beautiful about this program is that, again, you're experiencing what artistry looks like, not only across instruments and across genres, but also across cultures, and experiencing what music means to different cultures. The way that music in Zimbabwe is so integral to community and family experiences, to weddings, to funerals, where they play literally all night long through the night to be able to uplift those spirits that have passed on. And to see the way that these musicians move through the world and what music means to them was pretty impactful for me in my very narrow US, Brooklyn, New York, Western frame of gigging and teaching and trying to kind of like make my way through all of the hardships of what it is to be a musician and to survive and to try to make something that is maybe going to be meaningful because it gets written about in Pitchfork or the New York Times or something like that. And all of these things can certainly energize us and encourage us and inspire us to make things. And I think it's important to recognize that, but I think it's also important to see the way that other musicians and artists are moving through the world and how they value the art that they're making and how their communities value the art that they're making. So another part about this program is that a lot of the folks who are involved in the program and who are applying are really actively engaged in their communities through the arts. They may have an educational project that they're working on. They may be working to uplift the voices of young girls. They may be talking about race relations in their community. They might be trying to maintain Indigenous instruments that are being lost, that are unable to be played anymore, that are needing to be produced and then taught to a generation who doesn't really care about that music because of all of the popular music that's playing. And I think that that's another really interesting part of the conversations that are happening at One Beat, in addition to the music, are these questions of how can the arts enrich our communities? How can the arts not only heal through pure entertainment, but what does it mean for all of us to be artists? What does it mean to allow space for everybody to engage in music making? So one of the beautiful things about this program is, now that it's been going on for almost 10 years, is that we have all of these fellows who are alumni from all over the world. And in addition to the main One Beat residency, there are also follow-on projects that people take on. And there's, thank you to the State Department, some funding in order to support these follow-on projects. So people kind of come already doing some things in their communities. There's lots of conversation across different folks about what they're doing. And then they leave with a sort of renewed purpose and energy and excitement and the ability to have some actual monetary support as alumni of the program to keep these projects running. So if you could, Shelby, I wanted to also share with you some of these amazing alumni and some of the work that they're doing. And just again, kind of get a sense of the way that they're thinking about the arts and music in their communities. So there's this really Daniela Ladama video. La Dama is an amazing band of 4 women who met at the residency in 2014, and they have gone on to continue to make music together. They've made 2 records together. They've toured all over the world. They are from Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, and the US. And this is part of a project that they did. I think this is a Daniela portrait, but she's kind of talking about a project that they did in Venezuela and Colombia.
Musicians are so used to like just to play and to show. Sometimes we kind of forgot that we have this amazing power just to listen. My name is Daniela Serna. I'm from Bogota, Colombia. I'm 26 years old and a musician, and I've been working the last 12 years in Caribbean alternative music with different bands. But pretty much I've worked with girls. Everything started in one beat, 2014. Yeah, Maria has this idea. Now for Lara and for Sarah and for me, it was something that we also wanted to. So why don't we do it together? Being with La Dama, being with 3 women that are from completely different places, gives you like a different perspective of things. I mean, we're a collective, international collective of women building communities through sound. It's like a creative laboratory. That's pretty much the basic idea. My advice would be definitely to be music activist, you know, like trying to engage your music and artistic and creative work, which we all do as musicians, with something that makes your community better. Not because you have to do community work or be like Gandhi or La Madre Teresa de Calcutta, but if there's something that bothers you in your community, something that you don't like, it's better for you to do something about it through your work. That's a good way to live, I guess.
So again, just this idea of what are some of the issues in our own communities, right? And how can we as artists and activists engage with them? I think sometimes we think, how can we solve them? And those questions are that's too big a question to be answered, I think, by individuals and even as communities. But how can we engage with them? How can we create conversation around them and empower more people to feel like their voices can be heard? What's really beautiful about La Dama, Daniela is from Colombia. She lives in Bogota, but she plays a lot of music from the Caribbean coast, an area called Barranquilla in Colombia. And the drum that she plays, the tambor alegre, it kind of looks like a conga, but traditionally it's only played by men. And she and many of her cohorts in and around Colombia have been working to empower women and non-binary musicians to be able to play the instrument, and not just to become master players, but to build up their own courage, their own self-esteem. There's a lot of domestic violence. I think there's very much like a patriarchal system there, and their goals through music are to at least allow these women to feel their own power, to feel their voice, to feel their creativity, to feel their agency. There's another woman who was a part of One Beat a couple of years ago, Jen Del Tambo, and she has created a network of women and non-binary musicians from all across the world who play indigenous drums, and also through a One Beat follow-on project has worked with her partner to allow conversations between these different groups to talk about the issues that they're facing. Maybe they're not even talking about music, but they're at least, again, it's something that is bringing people to the table, this common interest, and we can play music together and we can talk about it, but the jumping off points from there are really where we're growing as people. And that's why we're here. That's what we're doing, right? I guess I want to pause there and just ask if anybody has any questions so far about some of the things that I'm talking about, or comments, or if you also are feeling like, yeah, there have been some questions in my own community that I'm involved in, and, you know, ways that you have kind of thought about addressing, or if you haven't, just, you know, any thought process that you have had in those kinds of situations or experiences. Don't be shy.
I think I will just make a comment about something that I thought was really great that one of our students is doing, or was doing, and I'm going to put her a little bit on the spot. But I think in the United States, maybe being, not just being a percussionist, but I'm going to speak from my perspective, is I think being, for me, I identify as she, her, I'm a woman. I think a lot of us have talked about how to see ourselves in a field later on in life, whether it's administrative, like where I am now, leading a program like yours right now, Amy, or performing, whatever it is. A lot of times, like seeing each other do really awesome things is empowering, and it means like we can be there one day. And a student in our program reached out to me, I think 6 or 7 months ago, Mackenzie, about creating posters in their studio of women who were performing and hanging them up, very similarly to probably all of our experiences in a band room, rehearsal room, wherever room, where you see the artist that's doing the cool thing. And it was just a goal for her studio to see where they could be. And I thought that was a really great way of engaging in your physical community, Mackenzie. And I just wanted to share that with everybody because I thought that was a really great just thing to do. And it was right there where you were. But Mackenzie, you don't have to comment on that. I just wanted to share that because I think it's really great.
I absolutely love that. And these little small cogs in the entire system are really valuable. And I think sometimes we can feel like, oh gosh, it's so overwhelming, all of the grant money that I need to like fulfill this big dream project. But even just these tiny little cogs kind of help support the larger system, right? I guess another thing that I'm kind of curious about, or what, just to get to learn more about all of you, if you could like think about your dream version of how music might fit into your life, or what you might like to do as like a dream job in music, could you type it in the chat, whatever you think that might look like? And it doesn't have to be a single thing, but I'm sort of curious to see how people are maybe thinking of like their trajectory with music as a part of their life, or how it is already in your life. Cultural arts coordinator, community engagement. Thanks, Austin. Performance in public spaces. Love that. Down with the concert halls. Professional chamber musician. Love that. Social practice. Yep, I hear you, Andrea. Yes, full-time female non-binary identifying percussion ensemble. These are all amazing. If you have any others, speak now, forever hold your peace. Teaching and performing new chamber works. Amazing. Raising voices. Yep. Professional orchestra performer, chamber musician. Truly not sure. Michael, best answer of them all. I'm not sure either. Great. Yeah, I think these are all really attainable, and you're probably already doing many of these things. I think when we're in school and working through school, it feels kind of really necessary to have a thing that you want to work towards, because often through our educational lives, that's kind of how we get from point A to point B, little goals that we're kind of achieving to get there. I think that having these places that we aspire to become is so important, but it's also important to allow for things to come in to kind of change that course. And that's kind of another thing that I wanted to speak a little bit about with my personal journey with this program. I'm going to share a couple of other things, but also, you know, we're in this space, we're on Zoom. It's still okay to be vulnerable. So I'm just going to jump right in. I think that if I'm being really honest, kind of speaking to what Shelby was saying, when I was in school, when I graduated from school, most all of my mentors didn't look like me. And I really felt like I needed to be a part of their community in order to get to the place that I wanted to get to. And that fully looked like making friendships, like I mentioned, when I came to SoSI and meeting the Jason and Josh and Adam and Eric. It was so much about building a relationship with them, but I certainly valued those relationships in a way that it wasn't really allowing me to know that there could have been another way, that there could have been other people that I kind of looked towards to build up that community and to, I don't know, kind of make my way through the ranks of this like musical ladder. So working with my teacher, Michael Burritt, I worked with Doug Perkins, I got to know Nexus really well, and they've all like shaped me and who I am in music. And then I went to One Beat, which was a mixture of all sorts of different people from all sorts of different places. And I think it completely changed my perspective on how I viewed myself as an artist, which was very much as like a classical percussionist chamber musician. Because I think that's where I saw success, was through, I mean, I'll say it was sort of through this boys club and the things that they did. And I did those things. And I think that they certainly impacted me. And I learned a lot and I grew a lot through working with those people. And there's still nothing about those relationships is damaging or anything. Those are amazing people. But I think that I wish that I would have pushed myself more when I was younger to think more outside the box. It sort of took me until a little later in my life to kind of like see that as a reality. I also am a queer person, which also came much later in my life for me to really acknowledge and to sink into. And I truly believe that being a part of the One Beat program and interacting with people who are outside of this kind of narrow community that I was existing within allowed me to see that in myself. And I think that that doesn't necessarily have to be with musicians from around the world, but there is something to be said about allowing yourself to have dialogue, to have conversations, to take risks in spending time with people that are slightly different than you, living in a way that is slightly different than you, having different perspectives than the ones that you have. And I think through those conversations, I was sort of recognizing how I was kind of seeing other people and their successes and the ways that other folks were looking up to them and kind of mirroring them in myself instead of seeing the mirror in front of me, which was me, and trying to grow and nurture all of who I am. And I think that that's a part of life and kind of a part of growing through how we change and evolve as people. But I think that these conversations outside of our own can really help to spark some things in ourselves that we're not necessarily allowing to come through. With that, I would love to share another One Beat fellow who's also our program director, Kyla Rose Smith. She has a program that she started called Here Be Dragons. Kyla's originally from South Africa, and she worked with an MC who's also based in South Africa. and a cohort of young students from South Africa and from Brooklyn, who sort of created dialogue with these kids about the place that they lived. And they each kind of created these sound maps in these different places, and they took field recordings, and they were able to share with each other about these places, what they sound like, their experiences with them, things that they're struggling with. And it was a way for them to not only create a musical dialogue, but also just a personal and cultural dialogue, and to engage with something so personal as like your surroundings, right? We often think of music as just reading the score, playing the instruments, but really sound is so much a part of our environment. And just immersing yourself in another person's sound world in just their natural environment, I think is another really interesting way to kind of just have a sense of how someone else is moving and existing in the world. So let's watch a little bit of Here Be Dragons.
Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Correct, Amy. Okay, here we go. 1 second.
My name is Mzukisi, but people call me Para. I'm from South Africa, in Cape Town. I faced a lot of challenges. I had no job, I had no support from my family. Building my own house, shack. So the only time I got a chance to express myself was through my writing. But there were moments that I felt like giving up. That's when I looked at myself and said, no, this is not what I want for my life. I want something better.
Okay, my name is Mara.
Attending the workshops of Here Be Dragons, I was able to learn different ways of making music and telling stories. Using what is around me to tell my story better and the story of where I come from. The youth that grows up here in Brooklyn, the challenges are similar to the challenges in South Africa. Wherever you may be, life is the same. If you go to travels, you go to travels. Sharing with her made me more aware of my surroundings. Things that she was pointing out in her poems that I will see, this is the same thing that is happening here. So now being able to express that, that's like the greatest thing ever. I want to inspire young people to see that in life you don't have to just give up because you are going through a lot of troubles. If you share, then you'll be able to be aware that there is someone who's going through the same thing that I'm going through, but still is making it in life. There's nothing that comes easy in life. You have to work hard in order to achieve. If you do something which you're really passionate about, you will be able to inspire whoever is watching. And there's always someone watching.
There is something boiling within us, our youth's nation. And they continue to tell us to turn off the kettle. The whistle's too loud. We whistle too loud. The kettle gets louder and louder. You know what glass does when the fire gets real hot? It breaks.
Any reflections? You can put them in the chat. You can jump in and say something.
Could I just jump in real quick, Amy?
Yeah, please.
This is
please.
just like spectacular. This is where I was hoping we would all land here. You are so lucid and articulate, and these ideas are really important. And I'm so glad that people are encountering them now as we sort of send them out into the world to do the work that you're talking about. So just this is just great. I just wanted to say that. That is all.
Thanks. Oh yeah, the small interactions with people on the street. So I guess to give a little bit more background about the larger organization, Found Sound Nation, which runs the One Beat program, they started sort of as a small seed organization. The three of them actually met, Ellen Moon Park, Chris Marianetti, and Jeremy Thal at the Bang on a Can Summer Festival, all as classically trained musicians and composers and producers. But they had this idea of something called a street studio, which was basically taking a computer, putting Ableton Live, having a single microphone and objects or maybe toy instruments or nothing even on the table. They're all pretty savvy in Ableton and pretty good producers, but basically they would just set this up in a public space, a corner, a street, somewhere, and just have people come up and record things into the microphone. And with Ableton, it's pretty easy to create loops. And so they would basically just live mix a track of a baby singing happy, and like, you know, that's in there. Then they might have someone clap a rhythm. Then they might have someone play a little flute that's there. Maybe Eleanor would have her violin and play a little melody. And the beautiful thing about it is not only are they capturing people's sounds, but they're also playing back the session as it's happening. So everyone that's coming up to add something into this microphone is hearing the track happen and evolve in a live setting. And these street studios, they did, I think the first one at Massimoka at Bang on a Can when the marathon was happening. And then they started taking them to cities around the country. They started taking them around the world. They did a project with some women in a prison in Italy. They were in Hungary. They were at other music festivals, and then often creating these playlists on SoundCloud that anybody who participated in would get a link to prior and be able to kind of hear the music that they made just as a passerby walking along the street. And I think part of Found Sound's mission and statement as an organization is the fact that it is our birthright to be music makers, to be sound makers. We come out of the womb making sound, and that any of that sound can and is musical. A lot of people feel like I can't sing, or I'm not a musician, or I can't keep a beat. I know for me, I'm like, I'm not a dancer, but to be in a space where someone is saying, yes, you are, and allowing you and encouraging you and kind of giving you the tools to help you see that you can be, even if those folks can't go home and create their own Ableton Live session, the amount of confidence and the joy and the happiness that somebody feels from being able to see something that they've contributed turn into something that is like really pleasurable, I think is a true gift, and kind of raises this question of, yeah, like, what does the art serve to humanity? Is there a biological function of like seeing and hearing and moving our bodies in a way that then allows us to see the world anew, right? And these little kinds of interactions are super powerful. And I think also as an educator, seeing the importance of not just building somebody's technical toolbox to execute something, but to just allow sounds and music to fill our souls, you know, again, to like build our confidence, to bring happiness into our lives. And for that to have this domino effect, I think is really, really important. Found Sound Nation also, oh, sorry, I just disappeared. They did, we did a really cool project a few years ago called Broken Orchestra, which David Lang actually collaborated on. It was a project in partnership with a new music ensemble from Temple University in Philly. And they collected a bunch of broken instruments in all of the public schools. They sampled them. David Lang created a score using the samples and the broken instruments themselves to create a performance with musicians from the Philadelphia Orchestra, from Temple, young musicians from educational programs, and they kind of showed how these broken instruments can really, really have a life. But the other part of this was creating a voice for these instruments for the public to see the importance of them to be healthy again. So there was kind of like an adoption website where you could adopt an instrument to be repaired, you know, to create this interaction with students, to bring in a composer, to give a platform to this cause. And they ended up being able to fix all of the instruments that were kind of like able to be brought back to life, to then go back into the schools instead of sitting in a locker somewhere, you know, to be never played again. And the goal is for this project now to be moving into, you know, different cities throughout the US, because if it can happen there, it should be able to happen anywhere. But truly, the star of the show are the sounds of these broken instruments themselves, which is kind of this beautiful cyclical thing, to be able to take that and allow the music that's created there in the community to be able to give these instruments new life. I think what I love about this organization and the people who work within it is that there's a lot of dreaming and a lot of thinking outside the box. And I'm kind of grateful to have become a part of that family, because again, I think my own thought process was sort of narrow in thinking about, how am I going to survive as a musician? How am I going to survive? How am I going to be able to basically, you know, pay my bills and pay my rents, and to have the monetary means to make my life happen. But I think pretty quickly we learn that there's so much more. And how lucky are we to be able to use music and art and creativity as not only a way to hopefully support ourselves, but also as in a passionate way to be our careers, to be the things that we're investing time and energy and dreams into. But I know that it can take some time before we get there, because when we're students, there's so much focus and there's a lot of work, and we want to build up that toolbox, and we want to be able to be a solid musician in the end, to be hired, to get the job. And I am sure that the guys in So and other folks, I know Josh is saying this, right? That there's probably hundreds of people who could all play the same part in whatever is needed completely adequately, right? But the larger part of this whole, who do you want to work with and who do you want to hire and who do you want by your side, has to do with like, who's having interesting conversations? Who's going to make me not only a better musician, but a better person? And if you're making me a better person, you're probably inspiring me to want to do more things musically. And so I think allowing ourselves again to just dream and to think big and have these other perspectives, I think is just so important. With Zoom right now, I know everyone's like zoomed out, but how cool to like to be able to interact with these people. So right now we're actually we're doing a One Beat virtual for 8 weeks, and we're working with 35 musicians. We're doing 2 of these, and we meet in the mornings. And we were just talking today in our staff meeting about actually maybe always having some kind of online option, because it really just opens up the possibility. I mean, we're asking folks normally for the residency to not only leave their country and their work, but often their families. They may be the sole breadwinner for their families, and to be away for a month is a huge ask for them. So to have the option of this virtual space, I think is really incredible. To have the option of the virtual space, maybe even before you meet in person, to be able to do some of the conversation and the work ahead of time. It's hard because I know we all want to be in person having these conversations, but I think continuing to take advantage of these virtual spaces is pretty special. Do any of you, I'm kind of curious to have an idea if folks are feeling like once we're able to do most things in person, if there are things, people or communities or ways of communicating that you've been able to do on Zoom that you think you may maintain post-pandemic life. So if you want to throw them in the chat, I'm kind of curious to hear a little bit about that. Or no, I'm over it, get me off of here. Yeah, digital private lessons, again, kind of a pretty great luxury. I know I've been able to remain connected to a really dear friend of mine in Zimbabwe and have some lessons with him and just chats with him that we probably could have done before this, but it, just weren't really thinking about it. Find a way to live chat during composition lessons. I like that. Live streaming concerts, a huge one, right? We've all kind of realized that there's a big value there. Long distance virtual collaborations. Yeah. Oh, virtual workshop series. Yeah, I've had some other friends who are starting similar things. It's pretty incredible to be able to like reach larger audiences. Yes, agree to those reaction functions. Yeah, so many equity things. Definitely resonate.
I don't want to interrupt Amy, but I think I was curious if I could explain mine instead of typing it. And I think actually, like these participants will agree because we've kind of talked about it. Like watching a live stream and being able to communicate with people as you're watching music has been so rewarding. And I think we're taught like you don't talk during the music, like you don't talk during it. And then you talk after the concert. And that's important, but also like when you're watching a live stream and you're just like enjoying it so it's like simultaneously with other people and sharing it, it's a really special way to just like interact as if you were at the venue watching it and it was a casual space and not a formal kind of scary place where you can't make sound.
Definitely agree with that. And even in situations like this, I know in our One Beat virtual sessions, we've got like 42 people on a Zoom together. The chat is just like on fire the entire time. And it's so fun to see all of these interactions happening while someone's either talking about something or presenting something. And for folks to really be able to, after they do their thing, to go back and to see what people were thinking. Right? Kind of like in the moment instead of an hour and a half after the concert, after you've seen it all and being like, oh yeah, I thought it was really great. But to be able to like see those kind of gut reactions. I love that. I wanted to share, so post One Beat, I became really close with one musician from Zimbabwe. His name is Othniel Mangoma, and then an additional musician from India named Muktarasti. Othniel is a drum builder, dancer, mbira player, all around just like walking musical archive of African and especially Zimbabwean music. He is a master of Zimbabwean culture, really. And Mukta is an incredible tabla player and singer, and we all met up in Zimbabwe for 1 month, about 2 years after we met at One Beat, and traveled around Zimbabwe. We wrote a bunch of music together with another friend of his who's from Indonesia, a guy named Hari. sort of a fusion of American, Indonesian, Indian, Zimbabwean, something. We're all percussionists also, which was a really interesting thing to kind of tackle. And then we traveled throughout Zimbabwe doing workshops, working at a few different summer camps, going to specific cultural sites where traditional music was happening, doing some interviews and interactions with them. And it was a really transformative experience to be able to make that happen. I don't know if you all know about Foundation for Contemporary Arts. They have an emergency grants funding line. If you don't know about it, you should check it out. They're an incredible organization, and they were able to make my trip happen over there, to at least help support it, just to give a shout out to them. But I thought maybe before we're almost wrapped up here, just play a little bit of a tune that we performed together at the Indonesian embassy when we were in Zimbabwe. So this one, is it maybe called Sadhana? Oh no, maybe I didn't paste it. Or I did.
Yeah, I don't see that one.
Terrible, terrible. I've got it here. I'm gonna put it in the chat, Shelby.
Awesome, I got it. All right, 1 second. Okay, and sharing. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Here we go.
Photo session in your schedule.
Not really.
After finish, welcome to take the photo session.
Hi, have you ever heard of...
Ooh. So I dropped in a couple links in the chat. There are tons and tons and tons of videos at onebeat.org, and there will continue to be tons and tons of more content thrown up there. There are playlists from every year, videos from One Beat. The FSN, Found Sound Nation website, also has tons of videos of all of the projects and different things that they have done. So definitely worth a deep dive just to hear how music is happening, you know, in other places aside from just the US. And what collaboration can look like.
Thank you so much, Amy. Oh my gosh, I think that was like super inspiring to a lot of folks. And I think we really appreciate your time just talking with us and sharing with us not only your experiences, but also the work of your fellow One Beat fellows and people you're meeting now. I think if we can we all unmute and give Amy some good vibes as we head out to the rest of her day? Thanks, everybody.
Woo! Woo! Thanks, everyone.
Thank
If
you.
you have any questions, Shelby has my email. I'm very happy for it to be shared widely, so feel free to shoot a message. One Beat applications are happening every year, always, so, you know, don't be shy. We love percussionists, I'll say that, because we're all very creative. And composers too, everybody.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. All right, everybody, well, good luck with the rest of your day. I know SoSI students, you're finishing up these crazy projects, but everyone just have a great rest of your day, and we'll see y'all later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Amy.